Hey y'all, Patrick here. Hope you guys are doing fantastic. And you know what I think one of the coolest things about being a musician today is? Whether you are a small time just beginner finding your first pedal and just really having fun with it in your bedroom, or being in a band, having fun playing local gigs, or being in a band and playing for thousands of people every night, it's really cool that we have digital effects and multi-effects that have updates and they can be made better over time or add more models over time or anything like that. It's just really cool that just because it's released now doesn't mean it can't be upgraded in some way later for more sounds, more variety, and just more great tone all around. So when Boss emailed me and said, hey, we have an update for our GT1000 Core that has 6 new bass amp models on it, would you be interested in trying it? I said yeah, but I didn't want to make a demo. I already made a demo of the GT1000 Core, but I just wanted to have something a little different for this update and these new amp models. So I'm going to try my best to recreate bass tones with these new amp models and see what kind of different sounds we can get with it. So big thanks to Boss for sponsoring today's video, and just a disclaimer, all the tones I'm gonna be getting, I'm not aiming to make it a 100% accurate, exactly how it was recorded bass tone. I want to have fun with it and see what sounds right for the song itself. And really, if I can update that bass tone too to make it sound a little better and just again, have a lot of fun with it. All right, real quick before we jump into this first amp, thank you so much for liking this video, hint, and thank you so much for subscribing and clicking that bell for notifications too. Hint. So for our first amp model, we have the Studio Bass, and this is based on the Mark Bass Little Mark III. This is such a wonderful, clean amp that sounds so good, but it can be so beefy at the same time too. And now, I am not the best bass player in the world, obviously, nor am I the most competent when it comes to slap or fingerstyle at all, obviously, but I wanted to go ahead and take a stab at doing my best to replicate Joe Dart's bass tone. The man is probably one of the greatest bass players alive today that has some of the cleanest playing out there. It is quite insane to me. And he has just a very clean, very direct tone that is super compressed too. So I thought, man, this would be perfect for this amp style. And now Joe Dart usually uses a Fender Jazz Bass or a Stingray. So I thought I'm gonna try with my Stingray, put some flats on it, put some compression in front of this amp and really see what I can get. So from Vulfpec's awesome 2015 album, Thrill of the Arts, here is Conscious Club. So amp number 2, the Silvertube, is based on the Fender Bassman 100, and I thought, man, I could go for something more classic, or I can go for something more early punk days like that, but then I thought, Paul McCartney. Now, he started using Fender Bassmans towards the end of the Beatles era, so when Wings was really coming up, he had gone through God knows how many different basses, how many different amps, and everything by that point, but one of the things I really wanted to try out was getting that Wings sound with my Rickenbacker bass. Now, to even begin trying to replicate Paul McCartney's tone, you have to have flats. I think it's illegal not to put flats on your bass if you're trying to replicate a Beatles or Wings tone, to say the least. And it just was a lot of fun going through, especially with the Silvertube, making sure it wasn't too aggressive, but also not too mellow either. It was just a lot of fun putting it together, see what different sounds I can get with it, and combine it to really try and nail that Paul McCartney Wings tone. So we got our Rickenbacker, we got our flats, and we got our Fender Bassman 100-esque amp. And now I think I'm pretty sure I got really close to it. So without further ado, from their 1976 album, Wings at the Speed of Sound, here is Silly Love Songs. All right, for amp number 3, we have the Classic Blue, based on the Acoustic 360. So many bass players over the decades have played acoustic bass amps, and it's just kind of insane the plethora of different sounds that are available. But I went with one of the godfathers of slap bass, Mr. Larry Graham himself, and man, whoa, it was really interesting trying to choose the appropriate song to really go ahead and showcase this. And I kind of took it for a twist. There are quite a lot of incredible Graham Central Station songs I could have chose from, and man, there's so many great slap bass lines that Larry Graham created, but I wanted to go really kind of different with this one and go with their song Earthquake. Now, if you've ever heard this before, there's a lot of fuzz involved with this song, and it's so cool and so funky, and it sounds humongous too. And don't get me wrong, this Classic Blue by itself sounds absolutely fantastic. Such a great vintage sounding amp overall that has a lot of different little nuances to it that really make it just stand out on its own. But because I chose this very specific song, I just had to throw a fuzz pedal in front of it, and my God, it is such a fun song to play, y'all. So from Graham Central Station's 1977 album, Do You Wanna Dance? Here's the incredibly fun, energetic, and just addictive song, Earthquake. Number 4 is the Solid Stack, based on the classic Gallien-Krueger 800RB. Lord knows how many albums this specific amp has been a part of. I've played through one, I think it was actually one of the first amps I ever played through, and man, it just sounds so good no matter what setting you're in or what cab you're going through as well. So I thought to myself, man, whose tone should I really try my best to replicate with this one? And I thought, what better than Duff McKagan of Guns N' Roses? Man, there are so many classic Guns N' Roses bass lines, and Duff McKagan himself is such an underrated bass player in my opinion. And God, there are so many options available. But I decided on Sweet Child of Mine Classic. And one of the things I really loved about playing with this amp is instead of just having a single channel, I did dual channel, where one was my clean one, my second amp was the same amp but more dirty, and I just added a little bit of overdrive but had it way lower in the mix compared to that first amp. But thrown together, it sounds so good. And of course, you have to throw a chorus pedal in front of it too. So from the classic 1987 debut album from Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction, here's Sweet Child of Mine. For amp number 5, we have the Fat Tubes, based on the Orange AB200 Mark III. And I thought there's a lot of really great Orange bass players out there, but man, I gotta give some love to Steve Michike from Every Time I Die and his new band, Better Lovers, because golly, the man can play some bass. It's one thing to be able to play really fun and cool riffs with good tone, but man, Steve really does take it to the next level with his bass riffs, and it's just so fun to play along to as well. So like with Duff McKagan's tone, I kind of had the idea of the main tone being very clean, but then under that have a second version of the amp that's super dirty too. Mix them accordingly and just have a lot of fun with it as well. But this one, I put way more gain on that second amp and it's so damn fun. So from Every Time I Die's 2014 album From Parts Unknown, here's the incredibly fun song Decaying with the Boys. And finally, for number 6, we have the Dark Drive, based on the Darkglass Electronics B7K. Now, I had a plethora of artists I could have chosen from, but I wanted to go really different with this one, so I chose Rex Brown of Pantera of all people. Now, he's mainly known for using Ampeg as his main bass sound, but he has had B7Ks in his mix a lot of the time over the years. And so I thought, what if I mainly go for that Rex Brown tone, but with that B7K sound to really thicken it up and give it a lot of grit and just nice distortion. Now, I didn't want it to just be a plain regular dirty tone just to have a nice distortion tone. I wanted to have a different clean amp under it to really just sort of A-B it, but of course have that Darkglass be a majority of it. So I went ahead and added a second channel so I can have that sort of clean tube sound. So I went ahead and chose the fat tube as well. Mix that together, have the Darkglass way more in the mix, but have that nice fat tube sound under it, and it just sounds so thick. So from Pantera's classic 1994 album Far From Driven, here's I'm Broken. Alright y'all, that is going to be it for me today. Thank you guys so much for watching, as always, for liking, subscribing, follow me on social media, all that weird stuff. I truly do appreciate it. And let me know what your favorite tones in this video were, and which ones I nailed and which ones I got completely wrong. Again, I just wanted to have a lot of fun with this and see how close I can get, but at the same time, take my own liberties with it and just go wild. But thank y'all so much for watching as always, and of course a humongous thank you to my Patreon supporters right here. But as always, no matter where in the world you are, stay safe, practice that bass, register to vote, and I'll see y'all next time.